There is no acknowledgement on the part of the administrators that affirming a cross-sex gender identity in children is not a psychologically neutral act. It starts another unstoppable cascade of intervention, but this one ends in permanent sterility, disrupted endocrine systems. My name is Lita Boylan. I'm an LPN and a CHES. I worked as an agency nurse in the psych hospital at North Central Healthcare in Wausau, Wisconsin from 2017 until December of last year. North Central is a taxpayer-funded facility. On the adult unit in 2017, I had a 19-year-old trans-identified female patient who had already had a double mastectomy and who nearly bled out because testosterone caused her ovaries to become polycystic, and then they virtually exploded. On the adult unit in 2018, I had a trans-identified male patient in his 20s who was abused so brutally as a child that he was legally blind and had an IQ of about 70 related to a permanent traumatic brain injury. He was prescribed 4 times the amount of estradiol that oral contraceptive contains, in spite of the fact that he was unable to live independently or maintain employment. During the pandemic, North Central Healthcare opened a brand new youth psych unit, and by 2023, it had become not...
You're not even going to believe what I'm about to bring you today. This is a really hard one because it's just like every effing day, I find more and more of this factual information from actual, real medical professionals pushing back on gender affirming care. These videos I'm about to bring you are just mind blowing. These 2 psychiatric nurses testified in front of the FTC, and these are 2 of their two videos of them in their testimony, which is mind blowing. And after you listen to these, if you don't change your mind, if you're like on the fence with this gender affirming care for minors, even for people who are 18 or so, I'm starting to literally say no to that now. I was like, okay, they're adults. I don't even feel that they're capable after listening to more and more of these people who've lost their jobs, who were attacked by the gender healthcare system, who really take, it's sad that it takes a lot for these people to get up. It shouldn't be this way. We should really put these people up and lift their voices, because these are the people that actually care about the outcome of these children, not the gender affirming machine. It's a machine now. It's not healthcare, and it's just so upsetting and gross. So I just want to do this one today. Hopefully I don't cry. Because I just can't stand it. I can't stand watching this stuff. And as if people are just pretending like it's not happening. It's shocking. It actually is shocking that our healthcare system is connected to this. And now it just makes me even think worse about our healthcare system. So with that, thank you all so much for supporting my channel. I totally appreciate it. I appreciate you subscribing, and even if you just don't even watch a lot of my videos, this subscription helps my channel get seen more, which I am able to bring you more of these videos to highlight the insanity and the child abuse that is happening under the guise of gender affirming care. So let me get back to this video here. It's going to blow your mind.
During the pandemic, North Central Healthcare opened a brand new youth psych unit, and by 2023, it had become not just a unit that I worked on, but the primary unit that I worked on. Many days, every single minor female patient was trans-identified. It was unusual for us to have no trans patients on a given day. Most teenagers experience suicidal ideation at some point. This is not a great part of the human experience, but it is also not an uncommon one. If a child who is struggling discloses suicidal ideation at school, it starts an unceasing cascade of interventions which occur without parental input or consent. School staff are legally obligated to report to law enforcement, who will remove the child to the emergency room, where the child is subjected to medical tests and placed on a 72-hour hold, and then delivered to a facility like the one that I worked at. All of this is done without parental consent. Sometimes it is done without any parental contact. The implied threat of is wielded with regard to gender dysphoria in a way that is utterly contrary to the standard, which acknowledges both the suggestibility of people who are actively experiencing suicidal ideation, as well as the long-observed phenomenon of suicide clusters, which occur especially often in young people. In other words, they come in, say that they're and we say, gosh, we shouldn't discuss that unless you're trans, in which case we have to do whatever you say. Payer sources are...
This is, we keep saying that it's not just relegated to the trans experience of this suicidal ideation. Is not. There are a lot of young people, sadly, like she said, who deal with this kind of stuff. But now all of a sudden, it's just a trans thing, and only trans people think about this. And the percentage, I need to keep reminding you, ideation is different than actually going through with it. Okay, they're both bad. One of the outcomes is worse than the other one. But that being said, like this thing, as if all trans people think this way or go through with it, or it happens more than not in any other cohort of people, is bullshit. Okay, it's completely bullshit. It's sad that even kids think this way, but they do. And it's not just trans kids. But then she's just telling you, oh, but when it comes to trans kids, we better talk about the whole thing.
Services are billed fraudulently, utilizing misused codes. Medicaid fraud was commonplace. It was openly discussed during rounding.
Wow.
My minor patients, who were as young as 11 years old, would frequently change their names and pronouns. This was always kept a secret from parents. Clinical, educational, medical, and mental health professionals of perceived authority who had already proven that they could override the wishes of the child's parents were now also in the business of hiding things from parents. There is no acknowledgement on the part of the administrators that affirming a cross-sex gender identity in children is not a psychologically neutral act. It starts another unstoppable cascade of intervention, but this one ends in permanent sterility, disrupted endocrine systems, sexual dysfunction, mutilated and an increased risk of completed suicide by every high-quality study that has been conducted on this issue.
Bam. Bam, lady. Bam. She just said it. Facts. Right there. Facts. And then the transgender, whatever they are, activist community are lying to you. They're like 11 years old, and then they don't even tell the parents. Wouldn't you be pissed? If your kid was in a psychiatric ward and all this was going on and they're not telling you what's happening, how are 11-year-olds even saying this kind of shit? And then they're getting affirmed by these crazy people, and then they're using the codes. They're doing insurance fraud. That, if it was on the up and up and it was true, they wouldn't have to create insurance fraud. What? Oh my God. Okay. Wow. Okay, that's the first one. I hope you're okay. Oh my God. I listened to these over and over because my whole mind was blown. My mind was blown. I was like, what? Why? Just why? And how come these aren't on them? How come none of this stuff is out in the news? How come that we're not talking about this? We're only talking about trans kids are kids and nobody likes trans kids and what? Okay, so that first one I wanted to tell you that the quote from her was, many days every minor female patient we saw was trans identified. Did you catch that? Psychiatric nurse Lita Bolin comments on both the social contagion and mishandling of care she observed at the adult and adolescent psych unit in North Central Healthcare from the recent FTC conference titled The Dangers of Gender Affirming Care for Minors. God, like really the outcome of this is going to be insane. Second one I have for you.
I had been a therapist at Multicare Hospital in Washington State for about 5 years. In March of 2023, I had a client come in, a female client, and say that they identified as a wounded male dog. And I had heard people come in before and say, like, I feel like I'm actually transgender. And I just had kind of treated them the way I treated any other client. But at this point, when this client came in and said that, I was like, at what point is someone's identity actually a mental illness? And so I emailed my boss, I emailed my colleagues, and I said, hey, I had a client come in and say that they identified as a wounded male dog. They said, you just basically say, awesome, I'm glad you know who you are, and you continue to be a therapist. So I kind of just kept thinking this stuff through, like, what is going on here with this gender identity and the way that we are treating these young children? And then September of 2023, we had had a mandatory gender affirming care training. And so I just researched everything I could about gender affirming care. It wasn't that easy to do. I would Google what are the dangers of gender affirming care? And the results would be how to be a good friend to your LGBTQ. I had written a letter saying that I would not go to this training. And I said to all the people that I found who were giving a voice to the fact that we're hurting children, I said, please read this for me. Tell me that I'm not wrong because I might lose my job over this. And I got emails back and said, you're not wrong. You're absolutely right. But you have to go to this training because if you don't, they're just going to fire you and then you lose your influence. We talked through some questions that I could potentially ask. And when the opportunity presented itself, I said things like, hey, if countries in Europe are pressing pause on this, why are we mandating this of our clinicians now? They were like, you are doing harm to our patients. Keep politics out of this. I was like, politics? I didn't say anything about the president. I don't understand.
Wow, I know people are laughing because it's that absurd. It is so keep politics out of it. These are effing children, people. And these are actually qualified healthcare professionals who went to school and they're questioning and then they're not allowed to question. What about this are you guys not seeing? They're being forced to believe something that isn't true. They're being forced to diagnose children as trans. They're being forced into it. Just do it, shut up, or lose your job. How insane is this?
The person that was doing the training was like, this is not up for debate. At no point did anyone say, let's look at this research together and figure out whether or not there's anything here. Why would that not be a conversation that they would want to engage in? They basically just said there is no reason why a person's mental health would impact their identity. It doesn't matter if they've had a history of trauma. It doesn't matter if there's co-occurring disorders. And then I had a client come in, a 13-year-old who was mostly nonverbal. She would just scroll on her phone and rock back and forth. She had a history of really intense trauma. And I saw that she had a gender clinic appointment coming up, her first one, and I asked her how she felt about that. And she said she didn't know she had one. And then after that initial appointment, her dad asked me to write a letter to start testosterone. And so I emailed my boss and I emailed the person who did the training. And I said, they want me to write this letter for this young child to begin testosterone. And I just feel like there's so many reasons why that's not a good idea. My boss came into my office a few days later and was like, I want you to know the person who did the training has reported you to risk management. I met with risk management numerous times. They ultimately determined that I was the risk. They took the child from me, said I was incompetent to work with gender distressed young people. And shortly thereafter, I left Multicare and I went someplace else. And 3 weeks after starting that new job, my article in the Free Press came out. Lost my job, single mom of 3 little kids. I ended up opening my own practice. I got letters from the state saying I was being investigated for not being gender affirming. That's where we are today.
I know everyone's laughing, but I'm going to cry right now. What? This woman actually cares about these kids. And because she is not following the protocol of you affirm these kids who are seriously mentally ill, you're now kicked out. What part of any of this are you guys okay with? How is that healthcare? Do you even know what therapy is? Therapy is saying, wait a minute here. Something's going on with you. Let's dig deep. She even said this kid has a history of trauma. We know a lot of oh my God, I'm just what? I wouldn't even want to bring my kid to therapy these days. It's so pathetic and disgusting. And they just plopped her out because you're not doing the right job. You're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. Wow, just wow. And this lady's a hero. Also, I'm so happy she was in the Free Press. She is a licensed therapist, practiced therapy at Multicare Hospital for over 5 years until her boss and colleagues demonized her for expressing concerns about gender-affirming care. I just hate that. Since then, Tamara suffered great financial and professional losses due to her determination to protect vulnerable patients from the this is from the recent FTC conference titled "The Dangers in Gender Affirming Care." Both of these women rock, just rock. So I want to bring you this. This is one of the aftermaths of just affirming that a child is trans.
I had facial feminization surgery. I had sex reassignment surgery. I was on HRT for 17 years. Now I'm on a combo dose because I can't go off. I have multiple health conditions from transitioning young and for transitioning for so long.
Wow. So what was it for you that kind of woke you up to this isn't what I should have done?
I found out that homosexual transition was environmentally caused in almost every single case by childhood sexual assault or by internalized homophobia or failed boy syndrome. 92.5% of trans-identified males are straight and bisexual, and the only explanation for a straight or bisexual man to transition is autogynephilia. So from my perspective, I went there and I was given a blanket diagnosis. It's given to anybody who has a body issue as a child nowadays.
You know that your message will probably make them angry. Why is it important for you to be here?
Because people are being lied to when they're being diagnosed. They're not being diagnosed with what actually causes the gender dysphoria. They're just being diagnosed with a symptom of a problem. And there are multiple problems that cause those symptoms. And when you don't appropriately diagnose people, you lead them into a life of ruin. All of these interventions are permanent, they're irreversible, and they lied to me. I want people to know that they're lying to people. They're not diagnosing autogynephiles as autogynephiles. I have friends who medicalized all the way and are self-admitted HEPs who were never diagnosed with the reason they feel this way. They were just transitioned.
Who do you blame for this sort of fast tracking of medicalizing children?
I think after gay marriage was won, there was an empty hole in gay politics. We had gotten everything we wanted, and I think trans jumped into all of the orgs that were associated with the gay community, and they lobbied to make gender identity a protected thing. They started doing that in the 90s, and I think this is a byproduct of the trans community intentionally watering things down and lobbying so everybody can have access, and they don't care about the people who are indoctrinated, who are harmed by this loosey-goosey system where you can walk into a therapist in 15 minutes and be given a gender dysphoria diagnosis.
And what do you think it'll take to fix it?
It's going to take lawmakers to step up and shut it down.
Shut it down. Shut it down. I'm going to keep reminding you, I transitioned at the age of 30. I probably have some stuff that wasn't diagnosed, but I didn't just go through a system in 15 minutes. It was years upon years of therapy, step by step, little by little. Even the person who did my what we call top surgery, I needed letters. I needed to have been going to therapy for a couple of years. There was a whole process of me getting hormones, all of it. That's why we didn't see a lot of detransitioners back in the day. We didn't even talk about doing this to children, only the freaky weirdos. And it was always shut down because the real transsexuals knew, you don't touch kids. You don't touch kids. No kid can make this choice. And this kid right here, okay, now a grown adult, is now have 17 years on testosterone, on hormones. It was a male to female and transitioned at an early age. That's why I showed you those two psychiatric doctors in the beginning telling you, no, they're just pushing kids through without even having any psychiatric evaluation. You're not allowed to push. You're not allowed to ask them what's going on, what's happening at home, what's happening with you, what kind of trauma is happening, some shit's going on with you. Okay. And then this detransitioner just showed you everything with what is wrong with the system. And it's why I keep saying, yes, this system needs to be completely dismantled at this point. I will tell you as a transsexual, 100% needs to be dismantled and rebuilt from the ground up in a healthy manner, which enables adult transsexuals to go through it and move forward. It is not what it is today. It is something so absurd and disgusting and wrong, just wrong. Child abuse, full-on child abuse. Now, after that little rant, there's this website called Plume, which I've always hated because Plume is a website that does gender affirming care through online. So you can sign up for $800 a year or whatever, and then you can have an appointment with a therapist. I look to see they do not do minors. It's 18 and over, which is also so insane to me. So at 18, you can join this website where they give you hormones, they give you psychiatric evaluation in 15 minutes, at 15 minutes or less, like Jiffy Lube. It's literally Jiffy Lube. And then you get to be a trans person. So I found this article, and the article says trans factor fiction, and then it's all about detransitioning. And in this article, they talk about how basically in a study in 2021 found that 2021, we're in 2025, remember that, found that only 1% of patients who underwent gender affirming surgeries reported regret. Well, guess what? Those are the only ones being reported. You and I both know that detransitioners get bullied to death by the trans community. So why would they, and who are they reporting it to? They don't have any safety net. They don't have anybody helping them. So how do they report it? And where do they report it? And also, this is a 2021. They always use the same stats. Basically, this whole article is completely bullshit, telling people that if you're really trans, you'll never regret it, telling them that there's studies that show that if you really feel like you're trans and you're really trans, it's just a complete hype bullshit so that they'll join Plume, which is gross because it's all a lie. I'm going to link the article so you can read it for yourself. It's complete, total indoctrination article. So then I said, well, who is the person who owns this website and started this website? I've always wanted to know. So this is going to blow your mind. Watch this.
My name is Jerica Kirkley. I go by she, her pronouns, and I'm the Chief Medical Officer and co-founder of Plume, which is the first and largest digital health company dedicated to the transgender community. And backing up a little bit, I am a family physician by training. And so, I went into medical school or even thought about going into healthcare in the first place because I saw it as a vehicle for social justice. And that's always.
I saw it as a vehicle for social justice. This is the person who started Plume Transgender Healthcare, the first and largest. This is the person.
What motivated me. I saw a lot of communities around me that were historically underserved by the healthcare system and wanted to make a difference there in some way. And so had always been drawn to working with marginalized communities. And when I got into my residency training within family medicine, I really had the opportunity to take care of trans folks for the first time, actually as a physician. And it was an incredibly powerful process to be a part of that journey with patients. And I quickly recognized that there was a huge gap in care, right? That many people could not get that care. And whether that was hormone therapy or just basic primary care, there are not many providers doing it because it's not a universal part of the training curriculum when it comes to.
What is gender affirming care, Dr. Kirkley? What is gender affirming care? I'd really love to know. What is basically just giving hormones to somebody who feels like they're trans or to affirm them when they say they're trans? If that's gender affirming care, I am so scared of the future for trans people. They're already bailing, okay? This is the same person right here who has that detransition is a myth kind of bullshit on their website.
The health professional schools. And so it was really a light bulb moment for me. And I, from that moment, just knew like, hey, this is my path. I really want to dedicate my career to find ways to increase access to great quality healthcare for the trans community.
Great quality healthcare. Let that sit with you. You basically go online, you see a psychiatrist or a therapist, and then you get a stamp, and then you get healthcare. What? Like, how is that even a thing? The majority of the transitioning people tend to be female to male, and they're suffering from a lot of the effects of the hormones because they're not being told about atrophy and about not shooting tons of testosterone in your body without understanding what's happening there. I remember I showed you somebody who was having kidney failure because they were just shoving so much testosterone into their body.
Now, all the while, I was going through my own gender journey in different ways that kind of came to a head, about 3 or 4 years ago, and sort of understanding that I am trans and coming out to the world, and then having to face the healthcare system myself and face many of the same struggles and challenges that I saw my patients go through for many years.
So basically now you have an agenda because you're trans. Did you see that creepy smile on there? I'm trans. I discovered I'm trans. Really? And your pronouns are she. Really? If I saw you walking down, like, this is what I'm trying to say. What? How is this person trans? What is this thing going on here? Are you even trying to look like a woman? No, you're not. There's no part of you that even, I just gonna tell you that a true transsexual would never do this. Okay, humiliate themselves like this. Of course, you get misgendered daily. doctor. Okay, you get misgendered daily on this. I hope you lose your license. I just hope you lose your license.
And started to walk that journey together. And that really became the starting point for Plume. All those experiences combined, my co-founder as well, who's a physician and has had his own struggles with the healthcare system. And we knew that it could be better. It could be so much better. And so we sought to build a virtually accessible, expert-backed, safe and comfortable place to get care as a trans person.
Virtually backed. Well, there you go. It's just all online. It's all online. So you go online and you get your health care. My God. Okay, so I'm going to close with this one because I want to talk about this as somebody who just adopted a child, okay, out of the system.
In faith, it really drives us toward that. James says it true undefiled religion is to care for the fatherless.
The Woburn couple reconfigured their home to care for 8 foster children, including a baby with complex medical needs, for 15 months.
Every night for 15 months, we were up at least 3 times.
Yeah. That's in addition to their own 3 kids. And they were ready to keep going until Massachusetts Department of Children and Families pulled their license last spring.
Now that it seems like there's no path forward.
We certainly thought we would have young children in our home. For how long, we didn't know, but we were not done having young children in our home.
The heart of the issue, the Marvins refused to sign DCF's LGBTQIA+ non-discrimination policy, which states a foster family must accept a child's assertion of their LGBTQIA+ identity, address children by their names and pronouns, and support gender-neutral practices regarding clothes and physical appearance.
We had asked, is there any sort of accommodation? Can you waive this at all? We will absolutely love and support and care for any child in our home, but we simply can't agree to go against our Christian faith in this area. And we're ultimately told, no, you must sign the form as is, or else you will be delicensed.
The Marvins are still considering their options, but 2 other Massachusetts Christian foster families filed a federal lawsuit against DCF in September, represented by the Massachusetts Family Institute and national group Alliance Defending Freedom.
So there's a speech component and also a religious liberty component to the lawsuit.
Just last week, the Trump administration sent Mass DCF a letter. It mentions the Marvins directly and says, quote, "These policies and developments are deeply troubling, clearly contrary to the purpose of child welfare programs and in direct violation of First Amendment protections." But LGBTQ+ advocates argue the non-discrimination policy is for kids. Massachusetts foster parents also receive a monthly stipend.
The state has an obligation to children to make sure that they're safe and well protected. And foster parents, they're not parents, right? Foster parents are temporary. They're supposed to be there. There's a stopgap to try to make sure children can go safely back to their families of origin.
Data collection by Mass DCF is poor, according to a report by the Massachusetts Commission on LGBTQ Youth, but the report suggests roughly 30% of Mass foster children could identify as LGBTQ, like the data collected in Los Angeles and New York.
I need to clean this off a little bit, but...
The Marvins have not cared for any kids over the age of 4 and say DCF has been flexible about placements in the past. That's why they're hoping for a conversation.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that? I hope you heard that. They have not cared for any children over the age of 4. Yet they still have to sign that thing that says they have to do the preferred pronouns and all of that shit. Look, I have some things, mixed feelings on this. I believe that a kid who might be 16 or 17, who might be struggling with gender stuff or even their sexuality, I do believe somehow that should be part of the system and that you can't deny that they might be homosexual or maybe they are experiencing some gender stress stuff. That has to be discussed for sure. But 4-year-olds or 10-year-olds, no, sorry. But the other thing I wanted to say is if you notice, and I know not about CPS and foster care now that I have adopted through that system, that they always want the babies or the children who were initially took from those families because they weren't being handled properly, right? Abused on some level, including they could have been abused because of their sexuality, okay, or gender stuff. But the goal, the people at the foster care CPS even stated, the goal, the fosters aren't parents, they're a stopgap, and they want to actually give these kids back to the family that they were initially taken from. This is the part of the whole system that I'm blown away by. So this family that was abusing them in the first place was taken away, given to a family, and then somehow they're given back to the abusive family. Yet this family, who's trying to give them a beautiful, loving experience, they don't even adopt anybody older than 4 years old. They're making them sign something that actually goes against, just don't give them kids that are LGBT then. Don't give them kids that, okay? So why do they even have to sign that if they're not going to, it interferes with their faith. But if they're beautiful, loving people and want to take a child in who's being abused by that family, the whole thing sounds so insane to me. And this is the war on kids. This is actually it. Instead of looking like, I do believe there are young people out there who are struggling with this stuff and get abused at home and get kicked out of their house. We know it. I've known people who've been kicked out of their homes because they're experiencing these issues. So that does happen. Let's not pretend like it doesn't. But that being said, they're not for. They're not for. And it's just, come on, man. You know, so the thing I really want to leave you all with is we really need to save these kids from this agenda of trans. It is an agenda. It is it's a mental health crisis beyond belief. The fact that they're firing therapists who do care about these kids because they're not going along with the illusion that these kids are something they're not. And these kids are more dealing with, if you're not getting to the root of the cause, it's like, if you solve a crime and you arrest the wrong person and that person is jail, but you're still let the person, just because you made the arrest and you're so happy and you caught the person, but it's not really the person, but that person who really did the crime is still out running around. What? You've done nothing good in this situation. So we've done nothing good by affirming a child in 15 minutes. Nothing good. Nothing good's going to come from any of this, for any of us. So with that, thanks again for watching and subscribing and helping my channel grow. I appreciate you guys so much. I love all your comments. Comment what you think about this situation. I love to read them, and I love everybody participating on my channel. It really makes me so happy. So with that, I got to get back to baby girl. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys all on the next one.